I've been trying to get something across for about 30 years that is not getting across. It's a fascinating frustration to me that I can't get this basic idea across. I'm going to try again right here, and I'm going to give some illustrations to help make it a little more obvious, but maybe people just disagree with it. I think that's not quite the problem. I think the problem is that I'm asking people to demoralize, to strip the moralizing off of their arguments and argue like human beings based on preference. And moralizing happens through what I'll call loaded, load-bearing, loosely defined last words. By that I mean these moralizing words we have like kindness, niceness, patriot, woke, the words that are loaded, positive or negative, that come up in conversation, and when they do, we will stand on top of the positive sounding ones. So kindness sounds good. I want to feel good about myself, so I stand on top of that pedestal, the pedestal of kindness. I'm a kind person, that kind of thing. And I avoid the ones, if they're negative, it looks like I'm sinking, so I wouldn't want to be on those words. I would want to load my enemies or rivals on those negative words. So I'm kind, I'm Christian, they're woke, they're hypocrites, whatever. And we end up mangling morality because we haven't recognized something very fundamental about these human moves. Kindness is a move. It's not always a good move. It's not always a bad move. It's a move. It's something in the human repertoire. From my perspective, what kindness means is accommodation. If I'm kind to someone, I'm accommodating them. That is, I'm bending my standards enough to make room for their standards, that kind of thing. Okay, so we have these loaded and then load-bearing words. The word kindness comes up. I want to hop on top of it because it elevate my status to say that I am kind. Another word comes up that's negative, and it puts me. It's a lower word. It's a debasing word, and so I'll want to put my enemies on it. So I'm kind. People who are not kind to me, that is, they don't accommodate me, are unkind. Unkind sounds bad. And we don't get around to defining these terms. We don't recognize that they're all in our repertoire. For example, love is in everybody's repertoire. Hate is in everyone's repertoire. These are standard human moves. They would have to be in our repertoire because we need them. And the fact that they're in our repertoire suggests strongly that there's a place for them. There's a place for hate in your life. In fact, I'd argue love is a really strong preference. All preferences are relative. The more you love something, the more you hate its opposite. If you love justice, you hate injustice. This is the point I've had so much trouble getting across, and this is the fascinating frustration I've dealt with. It's so obvious that the words for the moves we've got are not inherently good or bad, and yet we treat them like they are. Like kindness is always good. I don't want to be kind to everyone. In fact, in practice, no one wants to be kind to everyone. No one wants to accommodate everyone. It would be a bad idea to. No one can, will, or should accommodate everyone. The question is whom to accommodate, not whether to accommodate. The question is who to love and who to hate, what to love, what to hate. And we seem to avoid that, and I think I know why. I think it's because there's a moralizing advantage. We suffer as victims of other people moralizing at us, but we would not want to give up the power we have to moralize at others. So it's actually very much like the tragedy of the commons. I don't know if you've ever heard of this concept, but if you've got a common grazing area, this is where the concept comes from. There's a problem with overgrazing, but no one wants to impose the laws that would prevent overgrazing because they want to be able to overgraze. So what I'm talking about here is the tragedy of the common sense approach to morality, which is People don't want to give up their capacity to moralize, to use these loaded, load-bearing, I'm kind, he's unkind, loosely defined last words. What do I mean by loosely defined? What I mean is, once you put yourself on top of the pedestal as you're a kind person, you wouldn't want to find a very precise definition for kindness, because what if you're not? What if you found an accurate, fair definition? That is, if you strip the moralizing, the loadedness off of the term and said, okay, what actually is kindness? There's a possibility you'd find out that you actually don't belong on that pedestal. So they're loaded, load-bearing, loosely defined last words. That is, shut up, I'm kind. Or you should do this or else you're unkind. Those kinds of effects. What I'm saying is, if you really get down to it, none of those moves are inherently good or bad. And we lose a lot of power by holding on to the power we get from moralizing with these terms. We lose a lot of power because what if someone comes along and accuses us of being unkind? And we can get into a whole debate where I'm defensive and saying, no, I am kind. No, really I am. And they're saying, no, you're unkind. And you never get around to defining the term, and yet you're both insisting you've got the last word on it. I'm kind. No, you're not. You're unkind. We do that with all of the morally loaded terms, and I think it stunts our growth on the real question. The real question isn't whether to be kind or unkind. The question is where, under what circumstances to be kind, and under what circumstances to not be kind. And here I am going with my definition of kindness as accommodation. I would argue that a bunch of popular do-gooder words that everybody claims for themselves, kindness, loving, empathic, generous, golden rule, all of those words come down to accommodating. And we can get into a debate, a moralizing debate, in which I try to talk to you like I am the Pope and say, you're being unkind, shame on you. And you can say back to me, no, I'm not. You're being unkind by accusing me. We end up stunting our growth on the question of whom to accommodate under what circumstances. That's the real question. All of these moves we have their place. My point for the last 30, 35 years has been, be careful where you point that damn thing. You've got these moves in your repertoire. It's not like, should I have this move or should I pretend I don't have this move? Because you do have this move. No, the question is, where do you aim it? Where do you pour your love? Where do you commit your toughness? Where should you be brave? Where should you surrender? They're all moves in your repertoire. There's tons of them. And that's how we have dumbed ourselves down. That version of morality, the popular common sense, tragedy of the common sense approach to morality, moralizing, has made us stupid. It has made us immoral, in fact, I would say. If we could just argue from our preferences and our opinions, our perspectives, and not go around labeling people as using a move that supposedly they shouldn't have, we would be smarter and we would be less defensive in the company of bullies who, what does a bully do? If they're not going to bully you by beating you up, they're going to bully you with moralizing. And anybody can do that. It's not a gendered thing. That is, someone can bully for whatever they want by moralizing. So, I'm suggesting, I'm begging, I'm pleading with my fellow humans to understand something basic about our nature. We don't want to give up the capacity to moralize at people. And we end up making ourselves dumber as a result. Please try to at least understand and consider the possibility that all of these moves in your repertoire, your hate, your jealousy, your envy, your competition, your aggressiveness, your assertiveness, your uncaringness, all of these negative terms, they're terms, your lying, your hypocrisy, your indulgence, your entitlements, they all have their place. And all of the positive ones have their non-place, the place where you shouldn't employ them. And if you can just recognize that, and that the real question is where to employ them and where not to employ them. I'll give you a framing for this that has worked for me. And it's just an example. I'm just going to use an example here. I call it hard left, hard right, hard center, hard choices. So I decide that love is the answer because it sounds positive, and if everybody loved everybody all the time, things would work out well, and it doesn't work out well for me. I decide that I am going to be a loving person, that love is the answer. That's hard left. That is, no matter what the situation, I'm all for love. Okay? So I get burnt because that's what happens if you accommodate everyone. If you give an inch to everyone, some people will give an inch back and some people will take a mile. Okay? So I break with my hard left position. I go hard right. Toughness is the answer. Because, you've got to defend yourself. You got to protect yourself. You got to be brave, courageous. You can pile on the positive terms there to make yourself feel like, toughness. I'm the tough guy. And then you get burnt by that too. Because if you take a mile in every situation, pretty soon you'll be limited in your situations. That is, people don't want to be around you. So you come away from that and you say, okay, well, then the answer is tough love. That's hard center. So we went from love is the answer, got burnt, that's hard left. Toughness is the answer, got burnt, that's hard right. Tough love is the answer, that's hard center. And then you recognize that tough love is the choice. Tough choices. That's when to be tough and when to be loving. Because it's not like there's some clear center or that you can just always be tough and always be loving, always be accommodating while not being accommodating. No, that's not actually how it works. Nor is it some kind of 50-50 thing where, for example, the Jews would go to Hitler and say, look, you want to kill all of us. You want to kill 6 million of us. We want you to kill 0 of us. So tough love, hard center, you kill 3 million of us. That's not how it works. We are stuck lifelong dealing with these tough judgment calls about when to employ which of the moves in our repertoire. And we dumb ourselves down on exactly those questions through moralizing, through pretending that the words describe either completely positive or completely negative behaviors. As if the words denote completely positive or completely negative behaviors. Always be loving, never be unloving. That shit dumbs us down. So I'm begging you to consider this and look for, have a red flag when you or someone else is using one of these loaded, load-bearing, loosely defined last words. And they show up all the time. They are super popular. In fact, the Trumpists, from my perspective, all I can see that they're doing is, if it sounds positive, it's loaded positive, they load bear, that is, they put their identity on top of it, times infinity. They never get around to defining their terms. You've heard this about them, right? Woke is hella bad. That's all they need to know. If you ask them to define what woke is, it's anything they don't like. So what it is woke is just a pejorative term. It's a negative term. That means that you dump all your enemies down into woke and never bother to get around to defining the term, because if you did, you might find out that, God forbid, you are woke. And in fact, the Trumpists are by far the wokest movement this country has ever seen in terms of claiming to have seen the light, having the truth, solving reality, taking the red pill, They are by far the wokest joke of a broken movement this country has seen. And why? Because all they're doing is this exploitation of loaded, load-bearing, loosely defined last words. So please, keep an eye out for them. And tell me if you disagree with this whole scheme. I have several friends who do. I made the claim in a video a couple weeks ago that the idea that we should accommodate everyone doesn't work, and that kindness generally means accommodation, and that I had a different definition of it, which was that kindness means recognizing that we are all the same kind, that we are all humans and all have this repertoire. Kindness meaning, no, don't use these loaded terms as if they belong exclusively to you if they're positive and exclusively to your enemies if they're negative. We all have all of these capabilities in us. It's the same repertoire. We use them to different degrees in different situations, all of that. But anyway, I had two friends who said, well, I disagree with your definition of kindness as accommodation. And I said, good, let me know what your definition of kindness is. I'm happy to work with whatever definition. I'll try to be consistent about it, but I wanted to hear what they said because they thought mine was bad. And one of them said, well, first of all, I don't want to be black and white and concrete and logical about it. Kindness is a feeling. It's a subjective thing, and people perceive it in different ways. And this person was rather proud of this claim that, you know, you want to keep the term loosely defined, fuzzy, and all of that. And this person also went so far as to think that me asking what their definition of kindness was kind of a gotcha move. So do you hear the moralizing in that? If I ask a question like, how would you define it, since you've just said you disagree with my definition, that's a gotcha move? Okay, like it's unkind for me to do that? So you see the problem. And you see my fascinated frustration with this problem. People don't want to give up the capacity to moralize. And I'm saying we would grow up. We would stop stunting our growth if we demoralize, strip the moralizing off of these terms and started to talk about preferences. In this situation, I want to employ this move. And you want to employ that move. And it's not like the universe is on my side or the universe is on your side, or we have to go along with your plan because somehow reality agrees with you and not me. That's the high horse crap that gets us into all sorts of dumbed down to trouble. So I'm saying strip it, and I'm also saying to demoralize our arguments is in fact demoralizing. And that's probably why I've had such a frustrated time getting this idea across, is that if you don't get to claim that the universe is on your side or God is on your side or spirituality or whatever you consider to be the highest authority, science, whatever, is on your side, then you're stuck dealing with your preferences and claiming them and owning them and taking responsibility for your preferences rather than pretending that you're only humbled before some higher power, some higher Lord, the universe or God or morality, that enables you to lord it over someone else. Stick to preferences to the extent you can. Demoralize. That's my message here. I welcome your comments and critique and your alternative definitions of kindness. Let's take that as an exercise here. My friend rejects the idea that it means accommodation. Two friends rejected that. Give me another definition. Or would you rather keep it loosely defined so that you can claim that you're kind without having to check whether you are? That's the challenge. Thank you. Hey, if anyone is moralizing at you and it's causing you trouble and you need new strategies, get in touch. I provide strategic consulting on how to handle that stuff. How to be more effective in dealing with people who moralize at you. First half hour free.